Welcome back, everyone. Today we are back working on my HO scale layout, and specifically we are working on completing the harbor scene. We are doing major work today. As you can see, I've removed all the structures that I had over here, and in the video that you're going to see coming up, you're going to see how I built the walkway and retaining walls and all of this. So, busy day. And hey, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so that you don't miss any of my progress on this layout. I'm having so much fun working on this and sharing it with all of you. So be sure to subscribe and click on that bell up in the corner so that you don't miss any of the progress. Alright, so let's get started working on this. So as you can see, we are doing some major construction. So this building sits right here, and the rocks came up too high, so it didn't sit level. It was more like that. So I leveled that out, then set my building on there and traced the front of it so I know exactly where it goes. Now we have to build some stairs, come down, and then we're going to do a bunch of planks that take us all the way down. And I'm going to go wider. I'm going to go more this width. I think that's a good width. And then build all of those walkways, and then stairs or planks like that that connect everything. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the workbench and we're going to make the foundation that structure sits on. So here is the structure that we're making the foundation for. And I built this on a previous episode on my YouTube channel. The main structure here, the big one, is from Pendleton Marine from Foscale Models. And then the structure on the side here is from one of their kit of the months. So it's two structures combined, both from Foscale Models, and now we're going to make a foundation for it. And I just took some gray mat board. I got this at Hobby Lobby. It's 1/16 of an inch thick, and that's the back side of it. And here's the front. It's just gray, and then I painted the edges, and there's a section that is concrete in the front, a little driveway. And the concrete is painted using chalk paint. So you can see I have a pretty big container of it, and it's a great color for aged concrete. And I think I got this at Michael's. You could probably get it at Hobby Lobby also. So first what I did was I cut some lines in it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my pastel chalks. We'll take a little bit of brown, two different shades, light brown and dark brown, and we'll just put some dirt on it. See where the opening of the door is. Maybe some tire marks. And then I'm going to take some black. I'm going to use a little shorter haired brush so I can really get in the cracks on it. Okay. And there is our foundation. So here is the foundation that we made. It'll sit just like that. So again, now I'm going to come off of this corner, come out and go across with a little deck that comes off the back, and then have it supported with some pilings. So again, we'll head back over to the workbench and build the deck. So here's the wood for our deck, and I knew that I wanted it to stick 1.5 inches off of the back, and I knew that I wanted it to be 6 inches long. So I first measured 1.5 inches in from the edge and 6 inches over, so I knew where to place this. Then I traced it and then cut out my deck. So I'm going to make some retaining walls using these bamboo skewers. And to get the size, I'm first making a pattern. So that'll sit in there like that. And then the walkway will be right there. And obviously it'll go all the way up and down. So we'll head over to the workbench and make these exact patterns using the bamboo skewers. So here are the 2 retaining walls that I made with the bamboo skewers. And the template that I made, I actually cut down so that's how it will. And then this will just slide down in that hole that we made. Okay, I also have to make a little platform for a little shack, a little gray fishing shack that sits up at the top of the hill. So I'm working on that right now. So here is our little deck. And you can see I broke off the corner just to give it a little bit of interest, some character. So now once I get this put in place, there'll be diagonal pieces that go back to the wall that hold it up. And again, I'll show you what it looks like on the layout. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start to paint and stain all of my wood. Okay, so let's see how this all fits together. So here is our one retaining wall. And I may glue this to it. This is the support for the walkway. Then here's our second retaining wall. And then here's our little platform that we made. And then I still have to have diagonal supports that go back to the wall. Then we'll have to get the foundation glued in place, and I think I'm going to glue in a support piece, a beam right there. Okay, so far everything is looking good. I have to drill some holes because I have to put a post, some support posts for this deck. So we'll put one there, one there, one there. I'll put one in the corner. You can see some white here. I'll have to fill that in. It'll probably take 2 of the wooden skewers. I'll put some in there. I'll probably drill a hole. It looks like it needs a corner post right there. Then we'll have to see how this lines up. So I'm going to have to do a ramp that comes down like this somehow, and then I'll move this so that you can see better. But I'm going to put a ramp, another ramp up here. And then our little gray shed. Okay, so here's where we're at so far. Now all of this has to be removed, and I need to do some patchwork in the plaster. I'm just going to use some joint compound to fill any cracks or little holes. Because when you drill into it, I mean, naturally it sometimes just cracks. Pieces have chipped off. You can see where I've had to do some carving to make things fit. So I'll patch up the plaster, paint the rock, and get it exactly how I want it to look, and then start to get all of this glued in place, because right now all of this is just sitting there. And then after everything is glued in place, I need to make little ramps that connect to the piers, and then after I get my other piers put in place out here, I'll also do little ramps and maybe some stairs that go down, and then up here I'll do rope railings around this, and I may do rope along this walkway here, and we'll see. I may even do some rope down here also. And I did want to point out that at the bottom here, you'll notice the wood gets darker and it's more beat up, because I figured rainwater would run down here and maybe settle more at the bottom. So I made that really rough looking and really beat up. I'll show you. So as you can see, everything is just sitting there. They'll probably all fall down. There we go. Okay. Alright, so next I'm going to take my joint compound and fix any little cracks and holes. And this part will slow me down because I then have to wait for everything to dry before I can paint it and then glue everything in place. Okay, so now I am patching, filling in the cracks, and specifically filling in, making this look like there's a gap. I don't know if you've noticed in the videos, but there's a gap right along the edge. So I'm just filling that in, making it smooth with the edge of the fascia. So I'm just using joint compound, and you can just see I have a stick and I'm just filling it in. Now what I also do is, I don't know if you'll see it, I have rocks, whole bunch of rocks from different areas of Colorado where I live, and I just take some small ones and throw them into that joint compound. Just to give it some texture. And I just push them down. That one's a little too big. And it really just gives it some texture. And then I have dirt. So here is my dirt that I collect from outside, and then I strain it with a sifter so I have some fine dirt. Then while the joint compound is still wet, I sprinkle on a little bit of dirt. And then we'll take our shop vac. That got rid of the extra, so now it's just right on the surface. Then after this dries, I'll paint everything to match. But already I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. It'll just need a light wash to get rid of any of the white. And then I've got some parts where I carved, and I've got some cracks that I gotta take care of. So, but that's basically how I do it. When this dries, like I said, then I will do a light wash. I haven't decided what color. A tan, maybe mix a little bit brown in it, and then just put a lot of water and do a wash over it, and it should blend everything together. So again, I'm just using regular joint compound, and I'm just using a strip of wood. You could use like a popsicle stick or whatever you have for a piece of scrap. And then before this completely all dries, I will take out the piers, because I still want to get in there and add some little green and little weeds underneath them. Then I'll put them back in place. Okay, so some time has passed and everything is pretty much dry. Now I'm just mixing up a wash, and I used desert sand and put a little bit of burnt umber in it. And a lot of water. So as you can see, I'm just trying to blend everything together so it all matches. And there's definitely no science to this. I'm just using burnt sienna burnt umber, raw umber, and desert sand. And it's just a combination of all those. And you can see I'm painting right over the dirt. And just give it a really nice texture, putting that in there. So it's just going back and forth between all the colors. Hopefully my hand isn't in the way. But you definitely want to put some darker areas. Do a good variety. And then whatever we're not happy with, we'll just cover up with some greenery. I still have to glue in all these pilings. Now we're going to do some dry brushing using light buttermilk. So I have a pretty wide brush. I wanted to point out too that I took a damp sponge and wiped off my fascia. And because I painted this with a satin black, it cleans right off. I know I talked about that in a previous video, where if you use a flat color, it's hard to wipe stuff off and to clean it. But if you use a satin finish, stuff just with a damp sponge, it just wipes right off and stays looking really nice. Okay, so we're not going to do a lot. We're just going to do some here and there. Bring out some textures of the rock. You might not be able to see it on camera. It's really bringing out the highlights. Okay, I almost forgot to add some greenery. So we're going to do that next. Okay, I've got my regular glue. And first I'm going to start with putting a big bush back behind here. So I'm just putting glue now in the low spots where I want to put some weeds. And again, like before, I'm using olive green. And then also this yellow grass. I think it's important for modelers to pick what time of year you're modeling, so that you don't start adding a bunch of different shades of green, because they make scenery material that's for summer, spring, fall, and if you just start mixing it, it's going to look too colorful. So underneath these piers, a lot of the weeds or grass are going to be more of a yellowish color, a dead looking color, because they don't get a lot of sunlight. So I guess my layout would be set in September, possibly October. I do want to get the some of the trees on the layout. I want to have it where the leaves are starting to change colors. Okay, now I love using these. And some people may struggle with these. I don't know. I've had a few requests to show how I do this. So I grab a chunk out and trim off the super long ones. This is messy, definitely. And then pinch a little bit of it between your fingers. And cut it flat. Not much to see, but then I'm pinching it between two other fingers, and I'm going to trim it again just to get the super long ones out of there. Okay, now switching hands one more time, last time. Let's see where I want this. So put a dot of glue and put it in there. Then with your tweezers, just spread it out. You don't want to have a thin, straight piece that's going straight up, that it would just look awkward. So just very gently spread it, fan it out. But you just want to spread it out so that it looks very natural. Got a bunch of tall ones here. I'm going to just get rid of all that. And again, this is messy, but I've got my shop vac and we'll just vacuum it up. Okay, so we're going to take a pinch. We're going to go a little bigger this time. Okay, so we're going to take the end of it and pinch it between these two fingers. That way we can trim it the way we want it. Make sure we don't have any super long ones. Okay, so it's the correct length, and now we're going to switch hands again. You wouldn't have to keep switching back and forth. I'm just right-handed, and that's the way. Now this time I'm actually going to put the glue on the end of it. A lot of times if you take, I have pretty pointy tweezers, and if you just stick the point into the center, it sort of fans it out for you. Okay, hopefully you're seeing that. I can take the camera off and show you up close. So this time I'm actually going to mix so as you can see now, I've got it, let's see if I can, super long, so I need to trim that back. so it's not out of scale. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing scenery, is to keep it in scale. It's easy to get it too big. Sometimes it's helpful to have a little HO scale figure handy, just so that you can have something to compare it to. And again, I'm going to put the glue on the end. Every once in a while, I like to blend the two together to make it look like all the weeds were green at one point, and they are starting to die and change to that yellow color. Okay, so I set these in place to figure out exactly where I want weeds. So I'm going to do one under here towards the edge that's going to be a mixed. I'll try to move this so that I'm on camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm making a pretty big one. And there's a hole that I accidentally drilled, and I'm going to cover that hole. I forgot to fill it with the joint compound, so we'll just fill it now. Okay, so now I'm going to put another one right here. I'm kind of just sticking towards the edge to give it some interest right along here under the piers, where over here a lot of this gets covered up. A lot of times when I'm working, I am listening to blues or anything that has a lot of guitar in it. But I'm a pretty big fan of blues. Now, maybe two more, I think. Okay, I think that is good for now. I am going to take my 50/50 and just go over some of the stuff that I put on here, the little grass and weeds. Okay, it is all done. Just going to take off these weights. So pretty much everything was glued in place with liquid nails, and then all of the greenery was glued down with Elmer's glue. I'll take the camera off the tripod and give you a closer look. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Projects like this are my favorite. This is what I enjoy doing the most. There's a lot of problem solving, a lot of measuring, a lot of cutting templates out of paper or cardstock first before making the final product out of wood. So I thoroughly love doing stuff like this. And I hope it inspires you to try to tackle a project like this on your layout or the current diorama that you're building. That is my main goal with this channel, is to inspire modelers and to show you that you can also do this. It just takes time and a lot of patience, a lot of trial and error, and not being afraid to make mistakes, because that's how we become better modelers, by learning from our mistakes. You can watch a ton of videos, read a lot of magazines, but until you actually get hands-on and try the techniques yourself, that's really the only way that you're going to learn, by trial and error. And to put it in perspective, this was a 3-day project. I started this early Friday morning and finished it late Sunday evening. So I know it can be deceiving. You see it done on video and it's all done real quick and goes real smooth, and that's not the case. Like I said, 3 days, very little sleep, and a lot of coffee. And just trial and error. For example, I was cutting into the plaster and styrofoam that was already in place. And when I was cutting the plaster, very large chunks were breaking off. And so that's why I had to carve the big hole where the retaining walls went with the planks on it. That wasn't my intention, but it just started really chipping away. So I carved it all out, cleaned it up, had my retaining walls go all the way down to the wood level. And it worked out, but every project is like that. You're going to run into problems, and then you have to figure out, you have to come up with a solution to make it work. Well, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I love sharing my passion for this hobby and what I'm doing with all of you. I truly appreciate it. And be sure to leave some comments in the comment section below. Well, until next time, happy modeling, everyone.